Okay, hey, good morning. Today we have Wendy Bendoni. This is our weekly speaker series that usually is done in class at our high school, but right now it's being done online only. But the benefit is that we get these amazing opportunities to meet with people we couldn't normally meet with. And she's going to tell a little bit about her education, about her career path, and then we'll save time for student questions at the end. So tune in on Thursday, and then I will be continuing this in the summer as well. And of course, again in the fall. I don't know how it'll be in the fall, if we'll be online or in person, so we'll find out. So thanks for being here today, Wendy.
Oh, thank you. This is great. This is fantastic. What a great idea. I can't wait to tune in.
Well, go ahead and tell us
Okay.
your education, your career path, and even any future goals. We don't end just because we get a job, right?
No. I mean, I tend to show a sample of like 8 of my business cards of that, I didn't end up where I am with just one job. So I had 8 different jobs before I even got this job. So, okay, well, I'm not really sure exactly who everybody knows I am, but I mean, currently I am a professor and the chair of the Fashion Marketing and Marketing Department at Woodbury University. But I'm also a researcher and I do consulting. But that's actually not where I started. Basically, my career path started in high school and learning about, I wanted to have a flower shop. That was going to be my goal because I felt I was very creative, but I also felt like I had a really good business sense. And those two things are something that kind of streamlined my whole career, is that I always wanted to have something that was creative, but something that wasn't business. That was really important to me. And then I was introduced to fashion. So I liked fashion, but I actually did not want to design clothes. That wasn't really exactly what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do something in fashion, but I didn't know what that meant. So I went to school, I went to college, and when I went to college, being very honest with you, my father did not approve of me being in fashion courses, and he wanted me to be in finance. So I changed my major to finance, and I love finance, but I didn't love it enough to make it my major. And at the time, there was a new major coming in called computer science, which basically was computer programming. And I convinced my dad to let me I majored in fashion marketing and I minored in computer science. So I was pretty much the only girl in the program. And I would create code, I would create different scenarios. And I've always had that love for computers and fashion. And the computer thing continued. I ended up getting a job, which is what's called fashion forecasting. And I would help retailers and manufacturers know trends that are happening. Now, when I say trends, it doesn't necessarily mean only trends of like, are they wearing yellow? Are they wearing short pants, long pants? Like, how are they wearing it? It was actually how they shopped and how they experienced shopping experiences. So I became what was called the international correspondent, which meant that I went to Europe 5 times a year, from everywhere from Florence to Amsterdam, throughout Germany, London, and I did it 5 times a year. But my job was really to do what you call kind of qualitative research. So I would look at how people shopped and what they bought and what streets were popular and why were those streets popular. But then I would look at subculture movements. So I would look at what music are they listening to, what magazines are they reading, where do they hang out at night. So I really became, a researcher on culture. And that later adapt into the trend reports that we would create, and then went on to a trade show, amazing trade show called WWD Magic, which is the largest fashion trade show in North America. And you get different reps and different brands coming. And I would go and I did what I called it data science, but nobody really showed up when I called it that. So I did a lecture called Trend Science, which I basically educated retailers and manufacturers how they could look at different behavior, but looking at it from a data standpoint. So if I back up a little bit, what happened when bloggers, which we call citizen journalism, when that took off is I no longer had to go to Europe, I was actually getting much more information by analyzing data and looking at behaviors. So I did miss my trip to Europe, but I actually was getting more content. So at this point, I also went back and continued my education, and then went back and started teaching. And then I started teaching blogging. So 2009, I was teaching blogging.
Ah.
And, after that, I started getting more into data research. And now what I do is I'm actually going back for another degree, which is a doctoral degree, and I'm in it right now.
Wow.
And it's with a university in France right now, and I'm doing research on data cultural studies, which really means I'm looking at social data. So I'm basically looking at everything people are doing online right now, and I start to cluster them by tribes and different people, and help brands understand their audience a little bit better. So trying to like sum this up really fast, but so that's what I do as far as when I teach a lot of classes that have to do with that, but teach it in a creative format. So once you look at that, what does that product look like? Or what is that collection going to look like? Or what is your ad going to look like in marketing? So putting it into insight into actionable format. So that's what I do for the trade show. I show them how to do that. Everything from looking at, Fortnite did a thing with Travis Scott, and that had clothing on him. 12 million people tuned in. So we took that information. So now we have virtual influencers. And then I explain that to a brand. Why is that important to them? To Louis Vuitton, doing it with League of Legends. They had 20,000 people show up at a whatever stage in Paris, and then they created a capsule collection from Louis Vuitton, and the clothing actually sold out. So it's using data, but in a creative way, and then putting it, like I said, into actionable format. So I teach, I research, I consult, and once again, it all started from wanting to have a flower shop in high school and taking some classes on entrepreneurship and anything having to do with creative. So how did I do? Was that good? That was really fast. So, but I think,
oh my gosh, I get all nerded out when you start talking about data science and like how Louis Vuitton launched this capsule piece with I guess it's a video game. I know I've heard students play it. My daughter plays it too. I think, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a whole virtual influencer thing happening. There's like Michaela, which is a virtual influencer, and there's a disconnect and a connect. But as far as my background in fashion forecasting, it now has turned into trend forecasting, which is any type of trend, any type of driver of change that make people change their behavior. So, what we're going through right now, all the way to before that, when people started getting comfortable of using Postmates or getting into a car because it just had an Uber sign in it. So that means it's safe. So, but that's a different behavior change. So, that's where your kind of consumer behavior comes in. And every different company needs this. It's whether you want to get into entertainment, Netflix uses this nonstop. They create an algorithm tracking what you like, what you don't like, to give you suggestions, all the way to Amazon.
And how about
all the way to clothing?
These small town boutiques?
Yeah,
they need some.
Exactly, and for them it's even easier because they have a more direct contact with their audience, so they can really find out. Like, I think you heard the podcast, what we were talking about was, right now, really listen to what your customers need. And, right now, a lot of us are having to celebrate our birthdays at home, and, how to create like the best Zoom birthday party you could possibly create, and create a kit and give all your guests like a free gift card. That's a retailer really listening to what their customers need. And they call it like human-centric marketing, which is really just listening and not so push buy, but I get you, and let me show you what we're going to do to help you out. And I think a lot of marketing I've seen, there's a dry cleaner down the street, and they basically put a big sign, and I'm like, oh, it's probably to say we're still open or whatever. And as I got closer, it's like, did you lose your job? we'll dry clean, 5 interview outfits for you for free. Just bring them in, and we just want you to know we're there for you.
Mm.
So I mean, that is human centric marketing. And I think sometimes, like, in the world of marketing, it gets a bad name as just strict sales. But
Sure.
even listening to your past interviews, it's like really being customer focused. So
Mm-hmm. Human-centric marketing. I think my first day of classes, sometimes I ask students, tell me, define marketing. And a lot of them I hear trick people into buying your stuff. And it's just
yeah,
not true. I feel like
yeah,
there's this piece where it's all about helping, it's all about listening and really meeting their needs. One of my best friends, she sold things, all different industries for many years, and she says, even if I have to send somebody somewhere else, at the end of the day I help them. Now they trust me. So
yeah. It's
building
it's
that.
a short term way of thinking. You'll get that customer one more time, but long term, I mean, any company, any coffee shop, any place we've been long term, it's because we've received it over and over and over again. The tricking thing does it yes, you can get your sales up, you can get things up really quick, but it doesn't have longevity.
Yeah, it's
So
like I always say, well, where would you send your grandma,
yeah, yeah.
So I do have some questions here for you from students. So specifically, you'll look at all these trends and data, and then advise a brand on what they can do to connect. Like right now, you're looking at COVID-19 and all that's going on, and you're literally trying to project ideas or needs for people for the future, right?
Yeah.
So what does a normal workday doing that kind of work look like?
Well, I am definitely one that I like to hear the actual, um, I say voice, but it's really monitoring. So one of the first things I do is I look on Twitter, and there's a set program that will allow me to see if there's negative or positive messaging going out. So I'm very
Mm,
happy to say it's still positive, even though if you turn on any social media, it feels very negative in one way or the other. As far as across the board, it's like then you can kind of get a feel of what the water's like, right? And then you kind of deep dive into different areas. So if I'm looking for an overall, then I'll do a global kind of snaps, especially right now because of COVID-19. It's a global conversation. It's not like something I'm just dealing with in a certain country. So I can look at the overall spectrum. And then after I do that, I keep diving into um, Google has a great platform where you can do Google Think, and you can really dive into different areas to feel what's going on. Right now, I'm looking for kind of thoughtful leadership. So that's one thing, because I keep saying human centric. I keep saying that to brands that are really, it's not registering, they're like, what does that mean? Um, Time Magazine came up a lot because they put thought leaders together, and thought leaders together come out with a way of how can we go back to this new normal, right? That we're calling it. What
yeah.
does that look like? And make it more positive. There's a lot of, as horrible as this all is, and jobs are changing, and really figuring out what does that look like for retailer, what does that look like for movie theaters in the future, all the way down to music. I mean, there was raves going in Amsterdam, and everybody sat in their car and they played a certain station, and they had a DJ at the front, and people were putting on lights and actually becoming interactive. I
Ooh,
mean, like, those are the kind of things that really like pop up on your chart of like, even though that may not be your business, is thinking out of the box. Local retailers, taking their front window and turning into a walk-up window, delivering, jeans to someone's house, it's the neighbor, and letting them try on 2 or 3 pairs and then give you the ones that didn't work.
mm,
So those are the kind of, when I see positive in data, I try to figure out why. um,
mm.
Another way is just looking at, it is using data science and a little bit of machine learning, and it can basically these programs can track, I'm trying not to make it so like, what are you doing?
I
You
love
can
it.
track different behavior and put them into clusters and start to see what are some new trends. Like one thing I did one time was look at Coachella. And I looked at Coachella and I wanted to break it down for people that go to Coachella for music and people that go for fashion. And then separate which brands were more important, what labels,
Oh,
what did
which
they
person?
drink. Yeah, and start to kind of more of like they call it like psychographic. So you understand more like what they like. And I would say when you learn that, it's like if you bought a gift for a 17-year-old girl in the US, not all 17-year-old girls in the US want the same thing. So you want to know, what does that 17-year-old girl living, you know, in California, living in wherever, Glendale, like what does she want? And that would give you a better idea. So I don't know if that kind
Yeah,
of gives you an
definitely.
idea of what I do.
I think in class we did our scaled down version where we created persona.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, same
exactly.
kind
That's
of
what you're
thing.
doing, a persona.
What do you think is the hardest part? This is from Serena. What do you think is the hardest part about your job?
The hardest part, it depends who my audience is. If you're talking to a brand or retailer, they think data will give you the answer. That's the answer. That's what you should do. There is no magic ball. There really isn't.
Ha!
Data's
Then
made on,
Westworld
yeah.
reference.
And there's variables. So you really don't know all the variables that are going to be involved. All you can do is give a snapshot of what their audience looks like and what their needs are to basically help them figure out better what they currently have as far as products and how to deliver it. One of the things that I've done is like, which is luxury watches. So Swiss luxury watches is kind of like my niche. So the Swiss don't need to know how to make a watch better. They don't need to know, how to make it more luxury. That's all there, but they do need to know better how to connect with the next generation coming up.
Mhm.
And what does that audience look like? So your job as, doing any kind of data research, any kind of, they call it marketing intelligence, is being able to help them figure out what does that look like.
Hmm. Students are asking, what brands have you worked with? From Chelsea and Katrina.
What brands? I mean, it depends what like as a forecaster or as more of the data, or I
Both.
mean like magic like at
Right,
those type of
magical.
trade shows you get everybody. So I can
Everybody.
have a DSW to an Anthropology to Urban Outfitters walk into the stage. I'm not exactly 100% sure. And a lot of the things that I do for the overall industry are more with like magic right now. And then before that, the forecasting, we would have everybody from Victoria's Secret down to Honda would take our products. In the watch area, anything from like an IWC. I have no idea if anybody's going to know any of these brands, but like an IWC would be a brand that I would work with.
Mm-hmm. And can you suggest, like now, especially, I don't know how much the pandemic will change everything, especially in business, but my students are looking at choosing business majors. And can you suggest what field of business might be most helpful to kind of ensure some career success, or a minor even, something they could major or minor in?
So you meaning like major, I mean, in business, like, and I want to be clear with this answer. I'm not pushing my university. I'm going to push all schools. Okay.
I will.
But
I think it's fantastic. I
all
love
right.
visiting,
Okay.
and I
Okay.
think it's such a creative program.
But I want to give like an authentic answer. So it's like, I find that, like, let's say I'll have other majors like architecture or animation. A lot of those students will minor in business so they can create their own architecture firm or their own animation firm. I think business in general will never hurt you, because literally there is nothing you can do that doesn't need some type of business insight. Then it just goes into what area. So, management is literally what that is. It's management. It's managing other people. Marketing would be more into how to get the word out. That's great. You have a fantastic product or a fantastic service, but who knows about it? Even if you create a really pretty website or a new social media platform, you don't know who's going to get it. So it's basically creating this narrative for your brand. There are certain traits in people that they tend to go one way or the other. So that would be more of finding out what careers you want to go to. Like for me, I always tell everybody, go to LinkedIn, find out what company you want to work for, who works there, what was their path. Nobody has the same path, but you will be able to tell what area, who knows, maybe, finance might be your path and you didn't even know that was what it was called. I think in the world today, like I get a lot of students that data science is not necessarily what their drive is, but data is important in everything you do, whether it's customer service, whether it's marketing for a hospital. Like you constantly have to understand data. So there's just different levels. And I think inquiring about different roles that you can get in different schools, I think is important. Internships are changing, but there are so many free online lectures right now that, your series is like amazing content that you're giving these students.
Thank you.
So I think listening more, like if I said anything that kind of you get excited about, it's like, okay, well, maybe that's for me, maybe that's interesting. Or you're like, oh, I don't like that part, but I like this part you did, then maybe you look more in that direction. So, yeah.
Okay, so I have a question for us teachers. For us, we used to be called home ec teachers. Now we're fashion or fashion marketing. The ladies that all come out with, we used to be HEC'd and now we're called something else. But basically, career tech teachers, if we end up going online, I know you're a super tech lover. You have any tips for teachers?
To teach online or
to teach fashion marketing online.
Fashion marketing online. Well, first of all, what you're doing is amazing, because this is, as an instructor, as a professor, I can say everything that I know, but it always helps to hear from somebody else. It does here. It helps here. It does help because then you get confirmation. Oh, okay, so definitely. I think by bringing in different industries, and I love the different people you've brought in and just the people that I've heard that you're bringing in, I think that's giving a really good scope. I think in any career, one thing that I've known, especially in fashion marketing, like for instance, our fashion marketing program is in the School of Business. And I've had different people ask me, why is fashion in the business department? And then I have to relay that it's, a $1 trillion industry and that it is a business. So I think in the world of fashion marketing, it's really understanding all the different job opportunities that there is in that. And even the world of fashion is lifestyle. So it's everything under that umbrella. It doesn't mean necessarily, only garments. It can be lots of different other things. And then when you say fashion, there's sustainable fashion, there's virtual fashion, there's clothing right now that you can buy for $19. And basically every time you do a selfie, like you wear a different jacket and you can put that jacket in different colors and it's completely CGI. So it's like an augmented jacket that you put on. So, that's a whole other industry. Like, I think honestly, in fashion marketing, I'm pushing students towards gaming a lot because, esports it's a huge market. It's a huge market. And the fashion industry is just getting used to it. And I think that's the next big thing. Because for me, it's like, you get a 4-year degree. I don't want them to not be able to get a job. So I have to look at what are some of the trends and what are some of the, things that are out there right now, and digital marketing, data marketing, and all can be under the umbrella of fashion, because there's a lot of fashion brands, a lot of different, new things that are coming in that I think it's up to your university to kind of be on the cutting edge of what's happening. And like you are, bringing in guest speakers to kind of fill in the gap of what does that look like? Because a lot of times when people are going in, like especially fashion marketing, is like they think it's one thing. We think you only do one thing, and there's so many different things you can do. So
Yeah, everybody wears clothes, huh?
Yes.
I get all excited when you start talking about pairing other industries with fashion, like the gaming, or giving our students this exceptionally strong skill set that nobody else might have. You know, I know
Yeah.
Philip's probably excited that he said gaming. So,
See, it's a good thing. And another one is the girl I told you about before, Cindy Whitehead. Girl is not a four-letter word, and she basically was one of the top pro skateboarders, and but loved fashion and became a fashion stylist
mm,
for Adidas and Nike. She specializes in sports, and that's her niche. And she combined. I think you have to combine things that you love, and don't feel that you have to be in a corner and just be one particular industry. You can easily, I combined computers and fashion. I mean, now it doesn't seem so odd, but believe me, in the 90s, it was not a norm in any way.
I know.
So just don't be afraid of it. I think that's what's going to make you unique.
So, last question. What are some Instagrams that we should watch? Any of my students should be watching? Instagram or bloggers or YouTubes or whatever, besides mine, of course.
Right, of course, yours. I mean, I guess it depends on what you're looking for. Should I keep it more fashion? Should I keep it more
Fashion
marketing? Like what?
Yeah, let's go fashion
Okay,
marketing.
so I think fashion marketing. Obviously, you mentioned business of fashion is a really good thing to kind of look into. I think well, as you saw me originally on the Magic website, so WWD Magic. They're going to do some really good podcasts, and they kind of deliver other good messages that are happening in the fashion industry, and that's more B2B, so business to business
Yes.
as opposed to business consumer. I think that's really important to kind of keep up with what's happening. I'm trying to think of I feel like I'm going to have to send you this because I don't think I'm prepared for that one.
Yeah, any list you
But
send.
no, I have a list though. I do have a list of some
And
really
how about
good,
Michaela now, right? The
right.
AI.
Yeah, I mean, really interesting. I think if you were interested in anything virtual, just look at virtual influencers right now. The amount of content that is coming up in there is really interesting. Also, do the hashtag on LinkedIn fashion marketing, and that will automatically let you follow the feed of anything happening in fashion marketing. So maybe you're interested more in the beauty industry, or maybe you're interested in the luxury industry. You can kind of siphon it out which ones you like. But for me, there's a lot of really good industries talking, and right now it's the heads. It's not even like other people.
Yeah,
It's the heads talking,
yeah,
and I've got some really great contacts from LinkedIn right now. So I think at this level, I would definitely start following that and seeing those conversations that are happening.
right. I see that too. It's
And
crazy how they're talking about changing the fashion calendar now.
but we have wanted to do that for so long. That's really is no big shocker. It was a
Let's
mess.
just jump on it right now.
I'm going to say it. You can quote me on that. It was a mess. It was too much. It was just not working. So, I just realized you can follow our fashion marketing at fashion marketing Instagram, because I try to post. And actually, on that site, I'll lead you to other sites that may be something of interest to you.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Well, thank you so
oh,
much.
no
This is so
problem. Thank
exciting. I
you.
could nerd out and talk to you about all these things for a long, long time.
Oh, I
Yeah.
appreciate this.
Thanks
And
for
let me
joining us
know.
today, and
Yeah.
thanks to my students. Make sure to watch next